show, and we are now in segment 4. Josh is going to lead us off. It is trip number 2. It's the first return trip, unless you count the Supremes and Diana Ross as a return trip, right? We have done Bob Seger before, Turn the Page. We are now running against the wind. So before Josh runs against he'll run against the wind. You gotta sometimes love. You gotta go.
It's a little Michael McDonald-ish.
A little bit, but also a little Springsteen-y and Midwestern. Yeah,
it's a good counterpoint to the Springsteen album, actually.
It actually really is. Yeah. So Matt, go ahead and run the numbers for us.
Okay, Against the Wind by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band comes in at number 565 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 74 in 1980. Number 3,688 of all time. Again, did not make Rolling Stone's list. It's Bob Seger's third highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, behind Night Moves, which that was the album that we had covered, John. That was just
was it Night Moves? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I apologize. Yep.
And that's ranked number 2. The highest rated album is one we're not covering, one we did not cover, called Stranger in Town from 1978.
Okay. But it's all sort of the same period.
Yeah,
late 70s
through 80,
and
yeah.
80,
Or 76. I'm sorry, 76 was Night Moves, then 78 in 1980. So there you go. Yep, 4-year period.
Yeah, but this Bob Seger album's interesting. I enjoyed it. As I said, it's an interesting counterpoint because I feel like he's trying to do some of the same things that Springsteen does. He writes about some of the same things. There's songs about, well, obviously there's songs about love and longing and kind of missed opportunities, and there's also like the river
missed opportunities. I like that, Josh. That's a good way to put it.
There's a kind of a fun vibe to this album as well. This album seems very, or at least Bob Seger on this album sounds very Chuck Berry inspired to me. It's very that guitar sound and kind of the honky-tonk.
He did write old time rock and roll, Josh.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
So he's clearly channeling that in some way. I can hear that all over it. And a song like Her Strut, which is clearly could be like a Kiss, AC/DC, ZZ Top type of song attempt. Maybe not as good. But...
ZZ Top is a good descriptor. Yes.
So, and let's not forget the song about the railroad, Long Twin Silver Line. So, so it's kind of in that point being, it's in that blue collar vein, I think, as well, in the same way that Springsteen aims for, and Seeger's a really good singer. I really like his voice. I feel like his band complements him very well, and there's some good songs on here. I made the joking note. I was like, "Is this album better than The River?" I don't, but a song like Fire Lake, which I think came up on the John and Matt Sing the Hits. That was later on down the list as a popular song of the '80s. But when I heard it, because I did listen to it when we did that segment, but when I listened to it again, I appreciated it a lot more this time around. And obviously, you have the classic Against the Wind also, which is probably the most famous song on this album. So there's something missing for Bob Seger, for me on Bob Seger. For this, there's something that I don't know. He's like John Cougar Mellencamp or something. Like, he's good, but he's not like great. First, he just doesn't reach that upper echelon, even though he's really talented and really good. I don't know what it is, but it's a fun album. It's an easy listen, and it's good. It's got good guitar and his voice. So yeah, it's a thumbs up for me. Is it like mind blowing? No, but it's like really good and fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm along the same lines as you, Josh. I like this album. There were really, I don't think there were any songs in here that was like, nope, I don't like that song. I think I pretty much liked every song on here. I will say, I think Bob Seger is much stronger when he's not rocking out. I think when he starts to rock out, I think that's where he starts to fall into the generic category for me.
You said that last time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's apparent here as well for me. Songs like Horizontal Bop, Her Strut, Betty Lou's Getting Out Tonight. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just straight up. It's great blues.
It's like
bar band,
the band in Roadhouse or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but it strikes me as just very generic blues rock. But I could see, but it's also very appealing. I mean, blues rock is great, in general, and even if you do it generically, it still can sound really upbeat and fun and energizing and all that stuff. But I think that he shines a little bit more when he slows it down a bit. I think You'll Accompany Me, I didn't know that song. I thought that was a really well done song. Shining Brightly, the last track's really good. Fire Lake I liked as well too, Josh. That's more, he's got like a little country vibe going on there, which I liked. And Against the Wind, I mean, we've talked about him before, but I never really put two and two together until this listen, but that's a Jackson Browne song if I've ever heard one. Against the Wind sounds like, that's like one of the artists in the 70s that we didn't cover that I think that we probably should have. Yeah, he wrote it. No, Jackson Browne did not write, but it's like, it's what, if you listen to Against the Wind, that is like Jackson Browne. That's like Lake for the Sky kind of sounding Jackson Browne. So, and I think that's a great song. There's a reason why that's, people consider that one of his best or his best, But yeah, I think I've warmed up to Bob Seger. He's always, John and I talked about this last. I always thought of him as like the Like a Rock guy and Old Time Rock and Roll, which are two of the most played out songs ever. Thanks to Chevy, at least for for Like a Rock, but when you kind of strip that stuff away and you just listen to it, it's really good. I see the comparisons to Springsteen and Mellencamp. You got, these are like blue, and especially Mellencamp. I mean, he was Midwestern. He's from Indiana, I think, and he's like, that's a Midwestern thing, Springsteen's Jersey. But it represents that blue collar, rock and roll kind of vibe, the everyman vibe. I think Springsteen has, overall better song, like a much stronger catalog. But I've definitely have found Seeger to be more appealing than I would have told you how I felt about him, last year. And so, but I think that's kind of my main takeaway. I'm still there. I think I like the more introspective, kind of slowed down Bob Seger than I do the rocking out on a Saturday night, like all the sexual innuendo, which is kind of just the horizontal bop. It's also lowest common denominator stuff. It's hard not to kind of like get into it, but it just, I don't know, musically, I agree with you, Josh. He's not taking me to the next level, being like, oh my God, that was just a great guitar riff or a great line. He's very good. He's very talented, but he'll get a little bit more up to that next level with me with something like Against the Wind and You'll Accompany Me than with most of his other stuff. So thumbs up here, and also thumbs up on the album cover. I much prefer to look at the graceful picture of the 5 horses running across than like his weird, like sexual come hither look. Like that,
you mean that was the other one?
The Night Moves album was like, that's a weird look. What's he doing? What's he trying to get across?
He was inviting you in.
He sure was. I don't think I wanted to go in though, so that was the problem. So
someday you'll accompany him.
Yeah, maybe not, but I'm thumbs up on this. I like this quite a bit.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, Josh.
I was just gonna say another thing is, like, obviously Creedence is in the same vein of the blues rock, but they just do it so much better.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
So I think it's always funny. You guys kept the horizontal, like when you put a song about sex called the horizontal bop on your album, you kind of know who your audience is, as opposed to if like you have a song with like fucking, or you have a song like Let Me Put My Love in You, or like all of them are their own, like ways of doing a sex song, and like Bob Seger's is like that Midwestern thing where it's like, let's write a little naughty song about sex, but let's not make it too naughty. So if we say a horizontal bop, we know right there, So
it's like a country. It's like a country music thing to do. You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing. Like
it's a 50s rock and roll thing to do, like My Ding-a-Ling or something like like Chuck Berry. You mentioned that. It's very much like 50s where it's like, let me wink at the sexuality while being able to play it on TV. So
her strut, they sure do like her butt. They love to see her strut, but the butt's not her butt; it's the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I'm probably the biggest Seeger apologist of the three of you guys. I'm the one who's kind of sang it, but I will say this: I have always thought Bob Seger is one of the few acts I'd describe as a greatest hits album act, and I 1000% stand behind that, because Bob Seger songs that are great are like, I can listen to him 1,000 times great. And this album has 2 of them. Against the Wind and Fire Lake are... I'm all about both of those songs. They're also awesome. The rest of this album, though, is very lukewarm for me, like trending to thumbs down. I had a very generic vibe on it, unfortunately. Boy, I'll go into a lot about the river, but it did suffer like having to listen to it next to the river because they were in the same lane. And I've got my editorial thoughts on the river, but I don't know if that helped the album this week because it was such an easy side-by-side comparison. I appreciate what Bob Seger is. Like, straight ahead, no bullshit, like, not trying to be in any way overly, too cute by half, just rock and roll. And I think there's a place for that, and I think that there's people that shit on that, and I just don't get it. Because if you just make the guitar sound harder, it's like a lot of the rock and roll music that people will, like band rock and roll music that people will, trip over themselves to love. And this is just a different lane. I just think the quality of the songs on this album were not as strong as, and I'm familiar with, both of the albums that are above this on Best Ever Albums, and they are stronger albums. And I think the best Bob Seger album ever is his 12 greatest songs on it, because it's remarkable. I know Matt mentions a lot like a Rock. Like a Rock, if you hadn't heard 1,000 times on a truck commercial, is a much better song. It really is if you could listen to it out of context. Old Time Rock and Roll, I don't disagree with Matt's take about when he kind of goes like gimmicky, bar bandy. It's not my favorite Bob Seger. So songs like Her Strut and Old Time Rock and Roll are not my favorites. But when he goes into like, I'm a working man and I don't do well with feelings, but in this song, I'm going to give you whatever feelings I'm able to give you, usually in context about a woman. There's just, I don't know what it is, but there's just something very like masculine about that. And you don't see like, it's not vulnerable necessarily, and it's not braggadocious. It operates in this interesting lane, of like, hyper masculine, but not like violent, aggressive, or sex crazed, but also slightly vulnerable, but not vulnerable, sensitive soul emoting. Like he somehow gets this other like masculine archetype that like you can work with your hands, but also like you feel. Even if you don't know how to tell someone you feel like a very Midwestern. It's like very Midwestern. Like, I know you got feelings in there, even if you can't do it. So we're gonna write about highways and railroads and women that you lost, and like your blue collar job. But really, it's an archetype for like deeper questions. So I mean, I appreciate that about Bob Seger. So while I did not like this album in totality, I always will stand a little bit for Bob Seger and what he represents, because I just think there's that realm of the world where there's like what music critics like, and you can go in that realm, and I do think there's a very clear and good place for music criticism, but the lens can be taken so far out that sometimes those people can be so far up their ass that they also forget that music's supposed to like sometimes sound good, and it's okay if it's not always speaking directly to you or always, being transcendent. And like this is the space that this operates in. And I like that there's music that unpretentiously does that.
You can play at a fair if you're going to.
Well, shit. I mean, whenever Against the Wind comes on in a car, I turn it up because it's it's an objectively awesome song. Just like whenever I hear the like I'll turn the fades, it's like, well, I'm keeping this on for 5 minutes, and there's just a bunch, like Night Moves, another great one like that. So, I mean, it's great, like driving music, Bob Seger. So when he's at his best. So yeah, I have to go thumbs down for this specific album, but thumbs up for Bob Seger. So, and it's the last time we're covering them. So I want to draw a distinction.
This was a John special, I would guess. I can't imagine this is 1,000.
This was a John special, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. It's fine. I would, if somebody put this on, I'm not gonna be like, oh crap. It's like there's definitely some eye rolling moments here, and but it's like I said, even generic blues rock. I'm like, well, it's still a blues rock song. It's still, it's hard to say, oh, I hate that. It's like that modern music is founded on the blues. So, yeah,
good stuff.